Hey y'all, it's Cassie with Sew She Quilts for Love. Today I want to talk to you about how I assemble a quilt top. A lot of videos I've watched, people put their blocks together and then they sew their blocks in rows and then they sew their rows together. I have done that in 2 quilts out of the, 60, 70 or however many quilts I've made. And I find that I don't like to line up all those seams because I'm not that accurate. And so this is just another way to try and put your quilt tops together. You can give it a try, or you can think I'm totally crazy for doing it this way. But I thought I'd at least share the idea. This is a scrap quilt. These are all scraps from surgical caps I made. This is called the Plaidish quilt. It is by kitchentablequilting.com. It is a free pattern on her website. You should check her out. She's got a lot of really great patterns for sale as well. This is my second one, and I have the pieces cut for a third, and I still have plenty of surgical cap scraps left to do who knows what else with. Anyway, we're going to assemble this quilt top. Like I said, most people will sew their blocks together in rows and then sew their rows together. What I like to do is I start with a 4-patch. So I'll sew these 2 blocks together and these 2 blocks together, and then I'll sew them together in a 4-patch. Then I'll sew these 2 blocks together and these ones together and sew them together in a 4-patch. Or, I'll take them down off the wall and I'll sew these 2, these 2, these 2, put them back up on the wall. The point is that I don't do the whole row together to the whole row. I do the 4-patch to the 4-patch, and then this 4-patch to the 2-patch, and then there's only one time where I am lining up every single one of these seams all the way across. Now there's a couple times when I'm adding, several of them going up and down, but I am not doing every one of these. What is this, like 8 times for the 9 rows of this quilt? That is a lot of seams to get matched up. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to sew these together. And so I will put them on my table in pairs, and then I will get going. All right, I'm going to start taking my blocks off the wall, lining them up, and I'll do a little bit of time lapse, a little bit of stopping to talk and tell you what I'm doing, and enjoy. The way I keep myself organized, when I have so many blocks down, I make sure that I always have the side that I'm going to put my seam on where it would go into my machine. So each of these stacks I am putting on my table or on my ironing board in the pair, right sides together, with the side I'm going to sew where it would go in the machine. Now for now, I have not pinned these. I do, once I'm trying to put together more than the 4 patches, or maybe a little more than, once I've put 2 4 patches together and I'm sewing those to 2 more, then I start using pins. But for right now, since I'm just trying to line up these seams right here, just those 2, I don't bother with the pins. For this quilt specifically, normally I would sew this piece to here and this piece to here and sew these together. But because of all of these little double seams here, I found that I wanted to sew this piece here and then I'll sew it to this 4 patch. So again, you can find what works best for you. I just, as few seams as possible. So this quilt has 9 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the 9th one is on the floor, ran out of room. So I believe what I did on my last one was I sewed these 2 4 patches together, and then this 4 patch to this 2 patch, and then I sewed, so I do the seam here, I'll do the seam here, I'm going to do the seam here, and then sew this to here, sew this to here. I'll sew it in the middle. So that you can see kind of how I'm going about this, and I get a bigger chunk and then I figure out, okay, how do I get these 2 big chunks together without having to line up 8 bajillion seams. So we're just going to keep going. I do like to get to stopping points. So a lot of times I'll get the whole top half done and then do the whole bottom half. Sometimes I'll do all the pairs, sew the top half together, and then go back to the bottom. It just kind of depends, but it's nice to have like one whole top half finished and not just lots of blocks. You can see it coming together. So to finish the top half of the quilt, I'm going to sew these two together, and then I'll sew these two together, and then I'll sew those together, and I will have the whole top half of the quilt, and then I will repeat all the steps I did up here, down here, just with one extra row. So for the top half, the most we're ever having to sew together are these right here. And we'll have the whole top half of the quilt done. Okay, so we got the top half of the quilt pieced, and now we're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom half, sewing our pairs together, and then sewing our 4 patches together, and we'll make the rest of the quilt top. am going to sew these last pieces onto these quadrants. So then I actually have 4 quadrants. And when I'm finished with that, I will come back and I will sew these 2 together and these 2 together. Okay, so that's where we are now. As you've seen me do this a few times maybe, I have pinned something and then realized that my top piece is longer than the bottom. So I want to exchange them, repin them so that my feed dogs can catch up some of that extra fabric. It's not a large amount, but I've done a pretty decent job of getting most of these seams lined up, so I don't want to get them way wonky now. I mean, if you looked really close, you'd see where I missed a little bit. I'm not perfect. But most of them are pretty good. So flip this one over and try again. So I need to iron that one. We'll sew these 2 together here, which will be the longest we've sewn so far. I will be lining up 4 main block areas with the sashing in between. So that will be one of the longest ones. And then here we'll actually do the 7 across, or sorry, 6 across with the sashing. So you're only having to do all the way across one time. So for me, that's good. Almost there. good. Woohoo! All right, we have our finished quilt top. To go over again what we did, we sewed our blocks together in pairs, put our pairs together into 4 patches. Then we sewed the chunks together and made bigger and bigger chunks until we had a top half and a bottom half. And then we sewed along the horizontal seam 1 time. I hope that you found this video informational. Maybe it's a new technique that you might want to try. Maybe it's just something interesting and you can say, never thought about it like that, but I like my way. That's great, that's fine. I find that I like to do it this way. I feel like it makes me more accurate. I get my points lined up a little bit better. But you know, everybody has to find what works for them. So I hope that you will come back again and watch another video soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye.